tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Recently I heard a story that Ajahn Sumedho told about when he was a young monk. And he said that when Ajahn Chah would give a Dhamma talk, and don't worry if you don't know who these people are, they're working hard to not be anybody or something like that. Or I think they've accomplished that actually. But Ajahn Chah was sitting on the high seat to give a Dhamma talk, and Ajahn Sumedho was down at the end of the line, and he was in a position where he could see right into Ajahn Chah's eyes. And he said that Ajahn Chah would be silent at first, and he said his eyes were so unlike his usual, because he was such a vibrant personality. His eyes would sparkle. He had, really engaged with people. But at that time, when he was going to give a Dhamma talk, his eyes were like there was nothing, no one there. Because he put himself into a space where there was no one there. I can't do that yet. But I like to remember that the Dhamma is in all of us. And when we talk about it, it just comes through us. So if you haven't noticed that in yourself, I'd like to encourage you to pay attention to that, because it's there. And when we're letting the Dhamma talk through us, the words are peaceful. Even when the master teacher scolds someone, there's a lot of loving kindness behind it and no hatred or aversion. They're just using the best method they can for the person they're working with. Sometimes we need to hear something pretty direct, but a lot of times we don't. We can get the message from a little tap. But if the one giving the message has some anger or aversion, we might use a sledgehammer instead. So we want to learn how to put that down, how to let go, or be present with our own feelings in a way that we can react or act from a different space, from a space of peacefulness. There's been a lot going on. I don't know if you've noticed. And there always is, really, in human life. Because that's the nature of the reality, this conditional reality that we're living in. By its very nature, it's constantly changing. But it's not just always changing in a good way. And we know that, but we're still surprised somehow. And this last couple of days, we're traveling up here and spending some time with our Bhikkhuni sisters in Olympia, who you know. Ayya Suichana, Ayya Anagarika, and Ayya Satima were there. And during this time, a woman in our community is back in her home country, India. Her mother's dying. And we've been writing back and forth and occasionally having a phone call. And it's a very hard process in this case. But she's doing such a good job as a daughter, doing what she can to help her mother be more comfortable and really, I think, experiencing the Dhamma arising in her. She wrote this morning that she's weirdly calm while her other family members are having a really hard time. And this isn't to say that you have to be a certain way when someone in your life is dying, or to think, I'm going to die in a certain way, I'm going to be all calm and peaceful and junk. Not necessarily. And that doesn't mean there's any kind of failure involved at all. But instead, conditions are just the way they are, and we have to work with what we've got at the time, what's happening. But I think for each one of you as practitioners, is anyone who wants to really see the truth of the true nature of reality, wants to see past this conditional world to, what word should we use? Nibbana, ultimate reality, whatever we try to call it, and we're not going to be able to really name it anyway. But you know what I mean. What goes past, beyond this conditioned reality, where everything is so wild? So if any of us here, we come to the practice of meditation, but the practice of the whole Noble Eightfold Path, because we want to move beyond, see beyond, develop that path to realize what's beyond the conditioned, conventional world. And as we do that, we will feel the Dhamma arising in us. Maybe in those really kind of clutch situations, those times when things are really challenging, maybe anytime. There's so much right now in our environment that is challenging. I imagine you're feeling it. And it's an even more important time than when things are pretty smooth and easy and we're surrounded by people who are kind and loving and feeling really safe. In the times when there's challenge, it's even more important to come back to those same things in ourselves. The kindness, the peace, being loving. And to not take the bait when a bully is taunting you, because they just want to mix things up, right? And so to be able to be calm and loving and peaceful and clear, the wisdom has to be there, and clear about what's good and what's not good. How can we respond? And it really is with peacefulness. In every religion, there's some kind of expression of how hatred doesn't overcome hatred. It's non-hatred or non-enmity, peacefulness that overcomes hatred. I've been imagining the last few days what it would be like to form significant peace coalitions to show up in places where the bully's taunting, to hold that kind of space. I don't think we have to stretch those statements of how hatred never overcomes hatred, or to it's love that overcomes hatred. That's true, but we might not feel that love necessarily right off the bat. But what we can feel is non-aversion, non-hatred, non-ill will. We can know that we can be peaceful and not respond with anger. And then we can help others to do that too. And I think part of how we come to that space is to really see the bully. Have you known a bully personally in your life? You know that underneath there's a lot of suffering. It doesn't discount the bad behavior, but if we can understand that most people just want to be happy, most people really do want to be free from suffering. And when we see the suffering, whether it's in ourselves or in others, the practice helps us to have I'm trying to say like a knee-jerk response, like that trigger for compassion is what's there. So that's another good thing to notice in ourselves. When we really look at the dukkha, see if compassion arises. Because that is, well, I just was talking with Ajahn Prasano recently. Don't have to worry about who that is either. But he's been my teacher for a long time, and he said that trigger for compassion is just so important, so essential to any kind of realization, insight. So consider how that connects. How is it that the trigger for compassion is related to realization, to seeing the way things actually are? Well, I think it means that the trigger for aversion has been calmed, seen through, not suppressed, but to really, this is why it's so important to really see through it. This is why it's so important to be continually practicing being present with what we feel. To be present with what we feel, allowing whatever it is. In this moment, it's like this. In this moment, maybe there's anger. In this moment, maybe there's some ill will. In this moment, maybe there's some aversion inside. If we are present with that, then it can break open and we can see the fear or the sadness. We can feel that. In this moment, it's like this. And just being able to say that, we're stepping back. We're seeing it. Whatever arises in us, we don't have to feel responsible for that. That just comes from previous conditions. It just comes from whatever we've experienced before. Recently, someone was apologizing for some behavior that was very strong. And they talked about the conditioning that they've been through for that to be the reaction. And it's like, of course, when we see that, the compassion arises. It's like, yeah, what was really beautiful is this person is acknowledging it. And then there's an opportunity to forgive ourselves and each other. Because most importantly, we need to be willing to change. If we're not willing to change, or to, before that, even look at how we are, how we feel, how we react, what our patterns are, what our conditioning is, if we're not willing to do that, how are we going to wake up? That requires a change. And I'm sure that you've been practicing long enough and developing the path enough to see changes in yourself. This is something to really celebrate. To really celebrate. And I think one of the important practices before we step out into the conventional world and deal with whatever's coming through is to really ground ourselves in all of those things we chanted about in the Metta Sutta. Not in an artificial way, not just trying to paint over the bathroom, It's just really trying to allow and accept and be present with and listen to hear the Dhamma. Listen to hear the Dhamma come up, rise up in yourself. The Dhamma is not complicated. It's pretty simple. The complex part is ourselves and all of the conditioning we've had. But when we use that one method of stepping back and observing, mindfulness, this is what mindfulness is really about. And seeing that aspect of the mind, or that part that watches, that observes, that's not angry. That's not carrying any ill will or aversion. It's stable. It's always there. Mindfulness is always there. It's up to our developing a new kind of conditioning to continue to come back to it again and again. Eventually really living from that place all the time. I think Ajahn Chah must have been totally in that space where there's no self anymore. Because if we're really grounded in mindfulness, there's no self anymore. And don't have to become anything, don't have to be anything. You've done some stuff and now you're here. Well, that's right? True for all of us. We've done some stuff and now we're here. There's a monk in Thailand, Ajahn Ghana. He says, just cut off the past. Don't think about it. Don't carry it with you. Carry the good things, the good memories, the ones that trigger compassion, kindness. But otherwise, we've all done stuff. I happen to know that what was referred to in that bio was good stuff, because I've never seen her really do bad stuff. But myself, I've got a few things I just go, well, that was stupid, but I can, just, we learn. We learn from it. So when you go into the world, be aware, internally and externally. And know what you want to promote. And try to stay connected with other people who also want to promote that. The goodness, the kindness, the peacefulness. And let that radiate. And, when we see that there are a lot of people who are feeling forced to do things they really don't want to do, that we can have compassion for that. And not think of them as an enemy or at the other side of things. And even if, even in our day-to-day interactions with each other, recognize that a lot of the reactions that are hurtful, or maybe all of them, it's not like we want to do that. It's like it happens because of what happened in the past, of the conditioning. If we can help each other wake up to see that that's not really how we want to act, and we can help each other, remind each other, reminding ourselves, then we can change. It's never going to make it perfect. Our personalities are never going to be perfect. This world is never going to be perfect. That's not the goal. The goal is to see it for what it is. And to develop this understanding, this acceptance, this ability to bring forward that which is wholesome and loving and kind and peaceful.
Handamayam dhamma kataya sadhu karam dadamase. Sadhu, 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 anumodami.
So we have time for questions and answers now. Christina may be our mic runner, or Stefan. Stefan will be our mic runner. So if you have any questions or things that you'd like to bring up, this is a very precious opportunity to have the Ayyas here with us. So raise your hand and we'll get a mic over to you. If you're on Zoom, you can raise your cartoon hand as well.
Thank you so much for the meditation and the talk. I have a question about the beyond. I think you spoke of that which is beyond, the conditioning or the conditioned world. And I like the term conditioning because I agree that everything we do is conditional. It's based on prior conditioning. And what other people do is based on prior conditioning. And I also like the idea that we can recondition. That you mentioned that it's a kind of reconditioning in a way by what we do, and it's about cause and effect. If I do good if I do good action, then there's good effects, and that's a kind of reconditioning. I like that. I do have a question about the beyond. It seems to me that we can only experience existence which has the characteristics of impermanence, emptiness, and dukkha. And Advaita Vedanta, to me, wants to talk about what's beyond, what's absolute, and what everything comes from. But I don't know if Buddha really addresses that. It seems that Buddha addresses more what we experience and how we can reduce our suffering.
So there's a lot of what the Buddha says, and he's constantly pointing at the unconditioned. So that's what's beyond. And every religion is about looking at what is the ultimate reality, or what is beyond this conventional world. The Buddha talked about how every heaven realm, hell realm, whatever is all conditioned. That's all part of conditionality. That's all part of the conventional reality. But what's beyond that? Again, like I said, really all religions are looking at that. And the Buddha talked about it a lot. This is where we're headed. This is this realization. It's not a place to go. It's not a place. But it is the realization that is not conditioning. Now, you're right, through our senses, all we experience the conditioned realm. So it takes cultivating all aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path to a point where insight arises and we just see the whole thing completely differently. To really glimpse Nibbana at first, and then to really see it fully and no longer have any kind of attachment or sense of self-identity. So this happens. It happens to people now. We know some of them. It happens, like there are stages along the way that people experience, or experience might not be the right word, but this insight arises. So I think to recognize that the Buddha teaches about this a lot means looking more deeply into that. What is it? How do we prepare ourselves for it? How do we put in the causes and conditions? It's like you had that perfect description of how this works. We recondition. How do we put in causes and conditions with the modicum of free will that we have when we're not operating just out of the knee-jerk reactions from the past? How do we put in the causes and conditions for that kind of realization, that full understanding of the unconditioned? Well, one clue is looking at people that we think are there or maybe very close. Like I've been listening to Ajahn Sumedho a lot these days, because what I'm hearing is so much of what he's been saying for, I've been listening to him for like 25 years at least. What's more than that? And I lived there for a few years in his monastery. And now it's coming from a different place. So listening to people who are talking about this and sharing what they went through to come to that point of seeing, knowing, looking at what the Buddha went through to come to that place of seeing and knowing. It's there in the Buddhist teachings, really all over the place. But it's like you're right now declaring a readiness to see it, and you will. It takes that willingness to want to see it.
Maybe I could just quickly jump on the beautiful answer. Just to say, there's a beautiful sutta. I think it's really what you're pointing to with the fact that we can't verify the unconditioned until we verified the unconditioned, And what do you do with that? And it's a beautiful aspect of the Buddhist teaching, his precision and epistemological humility, in a very Kovilo-esque word that he's used a few times. And there's a sutta called the Chanki Sutta where the Buddha is being challenged by a Brahmin who's very skeptical. And the Buddha says, actually, it's true, we don't know. How does one protect truth? If one has faith in something, one says, I have faith, but one does not yet come to the conclusion, only this is true and everything else is false, because sometimes things we have faith in are true and sometimes they're false. Same with logic, same with lineage of teacher, same with because we have faith in a teacher. He says in each of these cases, protecting truth just means admitting, the limits of our knowledge and saying, and yet we have to operate in the world, so we take on views of some way, shape, or form. And then he says, what is discovery of truth? And that's when one visits a teacher and begins to gain sort of some confidence in the teachings. And then he says, arrival at truth is only when you glimpse the unconditioned. That's the apex. That's the one spot where you can actually confirm anything for real. But I think the beauty is that when the Buddha defines the unconditioned, you're right, he's defining it in terms of the conditions we let go of. It's the cessation of greed, hatred, and delusion. And what's beautiful about that is there's another sutta where the Buddha says one can believe there's no cessation of greed, hatred, and delusion, or one can believe there is. The benefit of believing that there is a cessation is that opens up the path in case there is one. Like maybe there is, and like all we have to lose is our greed, hatred, and delusion. And you're right, like we can't confirm how far we can take that, but it's a really beautiful humility at the heart of the teaching where he's saying like, it's a working hypothesis. So like, take it as far as you can, and you're right, like Longtama Mahabua said, it's like we're challenging the Buddha. He says all things are impermanent. So we try to create mind states in meditation as sort of stable as possible. He says things are wound with dukkha. So we try to create mind states which are as beautiful and luminous as possible. He says all things are not self. So we try to gain as much wholesome control over the mind's vicissitudes as we can. And then he says, basically you come to this point where you've pushed samsara to its limit. And that's just a good thing. But then, yes, the Buddhist final leap is saying, actually, there is something that can happen there that takes you to something beyond all that. And so I just think you're right to point to that as like, you're right, there's no way of proving that until you've proved it. And it's beautiful that the Buddha leaves room for that for us, because we're all operating out of, half knowledge to some extent. So it is interesting to see how our own conditioning lightens its grips over the years. And you just find, you can get a taste of what it means to not be as in the grips of past patterning as we used to be. So yeah, just some thought. Thank you for bringing that up. Suze, online?
Thank you, Ayya. I love the line, don't take the bait. And I was thinking about don't take the bait when I'm just sitting in meditation, don't take the bait in my own mind. And because there's a lot of stuff that's thrown out there. And I just wanted to say thank you, and perhaps you could talk a little bit about taking the bait in our own minds.
It's so easy to get caught up, isn't it, when provocative things arise in the mind. And we find ourselves following that track, whether we're on or off the cushion, before we catch ourselves and we notice that, wait a minute, I'm just building up more greed, hatred, and delusion here. But the quicker we catch it, then the more chance there is we're going to catch it even quicker next time. And so it is important to think about how this, we think, oh, I'm just thinking this. Or there was someone in my life who would say harsh things, and then they would say, but I'm not telling them that. I'm just saying, but it really matters that it's in our mind or in our speech among our friends or whatever, and if we can start to recognize that that's also the bait, you know, don't take the bait. There's a hook in it, a big one. And, you know, and to realize that we can unhook ourselves, we can recondition, we can catch ourselves and take the other route. Another sutta that's really wonderful is number 8 in the Majjhima Nikaya, called effacement, and the Buddha talks about all these different mental conditions, or all these different things where if you take the bait, you're going on the rough path, and there's an alternative, there's a smooth path. If you take the bait and get angry, there's a smooth path, which is non-anger. And with every kind of mental state, that brings more strife, more struggle. And sometimes the bait can look really, really good. Ajahn Ghana says, everything in the world is so delicious. Well, sometimes it looks good even when we know it's not good, you know, like it seems exciting, you know, you want to tune into it because something's going on, right? But that too can be the bait. And so we can know for sure by where it leads. Does it lead to peace? Or does it lead away from peace?
Thank you very much. My question is in regards to some of the things you mentioned about around being with allowing peace, allowing compassion, and all these other aspects of. It sounds like if I may ask, is it allowing oneself to surrender? Is it allowing one to have the greater picturing of what lies beyond? Is that in allowing myself to just surrender to the confrontation or the turmoil or whatever's going on that's not in my best interest or truth, but is in what I'm emotionally experiencing in my emotional mind from a situation, rather than it's part of my human makeup, right? But is there anything other than that is being occurred?
Let me see if I understood what you said. No, that's okay. I want to just, sometimes I miss the point. I think what I was hearing is maybe the wish for clarity between surrendering, like giving up in a way that's good, like giving up our toxic patterns, or giving up or surrendering to, well, this is what's happening in the moment, it's like this, versus surrendering to negative forces and just kind of like being a doormat. Is that the right?
Not so much a doormat, but an experience of what is like, I guess the ultimate question around that is like, so let's say there's a breakup, an emotional breakup with a friend, and you want their best interest. You want them to be happy again. You want them to be their happy-go-lucky self, but you also want to be happy. It's a natural thing that we grieve. It's a natural thing that we have trouble letting go. And so in letting go, we allow ourselves, if we really truly give ourselves permission.
Yeah, we want to give ourselves permission to feel what we feel. Never try to, let me try this again. We want to be sure to feel what we feel, but from that place of observing, not from that place of, I'm just awash in it. If we're present with what we feel, then it can move through. But sometimes the pattern is to cling to that feeling and go there over and over and over and over. Even though I've learned everything I can learn about this thing already it still comes back. That's where we really want to be, in the mindfulness and wisdom. And know, I know what this is. I've been here before so many times, and I can let this go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have another online. Is that correct, Mala? Kirk? What's their name? Giordano. Person online, please. We can't see your name from here. I'm sorry. If you have your hand raised.
It's okay.
Go for it.
Hey. Okay. All right. I heard on the Dharma talk series and guys, I remember you said that well, I was gonna ask because you said like the Buddha teaches you to end suffering, and then you said lessen our suffering when we deal with problems in life and things like that. And I was wondering, how do you when did the Buddha say like that it helps you to, when you have problems in life and stuff like that, like how can we see that in how the Buddha taught?
Okay, so first noble truth. When there's dukkha, we acknowledge there's dukkha. There's dukkha here. I'm experiencing it. And our job is to understand that dukkha. So as soon as we take that position of being present with the dukkha, it doesn't feel as bad. Because the position of the observer is not in the dukkha. If you feel afraid, if you observe that fear, the part that's observing is not afraid. Notice that. Notice that the dukkha already, the edge of the dukkha is already down. Just notice that. If we're grieving, being present with that grieving heart, we're observing it, you feel it, you might be crying your eyes out, it's okay. The observer part is not grieving, and you can feel that. There is that solid ground. That is the witness. That is the witnessing of it. And it's through that witnessing that we can then actually look at what the cause is of this dukkha. We wanted something to be different than it is. There's a desire for some kind of sensual feeling. There's a wish to be something or become something. There's a wish to get rid of something. Something there that's not the way we want it to be. When we look at that cause from that place of witnessing, it's easier to let that go. That's how we end the dukkha. The Buddha talked about it. First message out of the box of enlightenment was the Four Noble Truths. And then, of course, experiencing the dukkha really ending, and the whole Noble Eightfold Path that helps us develop all of the qualities, all of the skills to be able to do this. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you for the talk, and very nice to see you. Thank you for coming to visit. My question is, I've experienced many times resentment, anger, bitterness, and mindfulness arising and saying, who's suffering here? I'm creating suffering myself. And that there is this relief. And so there's sort of a settling of the emotional tone. And then there's this voice. It's pretty consistently, particularly on certain topics. Yeah, but I'm right. I'm right. But I'm right. And it's a very calm, it's very knowledgeable. There's no dukkha around that. So how do you decondition that? Because I can, step back and go, oh yeah, that's self. Woo, yeah, that's self.
Yeah, when that voice comes in, whatever, people have different voices. I've heard Ajahn Jayasaro talk often about the voice that comes in after you've done some good thing, and the voice says, oh yeah, you're just doing that to be noticed, or you're just doing that. Another insidious voice, right? So take one more step back, like you said, and see, oh, this voice is coming, as you said, from the sense of self. This voice, what's this voice covering up? Why does it want to be right? Investigate. What's so great about being right? Do I want to be right, or do I want to be happy? Do I want to be free of right and wrong? When we really spend time in that witness position, we realize that the unconditioned is beyond right and wrong. We don't have to be right anymore. We don't have to be anything anymore. There are all these layers. We just have to keep peeling them off.
Can I add one small thing, Ayya, as well? I would also say it's interesting, this binary of the heart between, a slight sense of othering or kind of self-holding and true humility. And Ajahn Viradhamma says humility is love of reality. And Longpo Cha spoke about being, right in fact and wrong in Dhamma. And it's just interesting because there is something hiding behind that voice, you're right, of like some sort of othering or lack of forgiveness or just some residue of the splinter of bhava becoming is still there. I think you're right to point out. It's hilarious, and I think we all have it, like the way you phrased it. But just, this aspect, like if we, with all these teachings and practice, have so much trouble acting as beautifully as we wish we would act, if we slip so often, how can we be so unforgiving of those who don't have access to these same teachings in the same way? And there's a sense of like, yeah, on a particular issue, you can go back and forth with who's right and who's wrong, and you might well be right. But in your role in the world, and what you can give the world as a practitioner, in a sense, you're right. The moment that there's that sense of like, oh, I'm right, but I'm right, you're not actually right anymore, because your role in the world is, and this moment where you release into this utter humility of complete openness of heart, and that's where an alchemy can occur in the conditioned realm that's pretty profound. So just to say, like, yes, you could definitely be right on the issue, but I also think you're right to see the distance between, the Buddha compares some fetters to us like a rotting creeper on the leg of a quail. And it's so interesting, those things that from the outside, they don't look that big. It's just me being right. But you're right that it's the rotting creeper that's keeping your full wingspan from being revealed, and there's a very interesting motion there where you just, yeah, I'm wrong in this moment for thinking that. We have a practitioner in Spokane who, if he repeats something to himself 3 times, he knows he's wrong somehow, Ajahn Kola and I try to use that some, or we should. Okay, we should. So, we do have to wrap stuff up, I think.
Nice. Thanks, Ajahn. Ayyas, thank you so much. Both Ayyas,